Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, it's 2021, and this is the 21st year I've lived in Southern Pines.
Oh, well, good for you.
21 years of now developing a perspective that I did not have when I first came here. And I only say that as a preface to the comment that today's show is entitled West Southern Pines at a Crossroads.
Ah.
And for 21 years that I've been here, I have seen from my real estate vantage point an area of Southern Pines that was either much maligned or ignored. But in the last couple of years, we see, as our demographics are shifting and growth is everywhere and Southern Pines is growing, things are starting to change. West Southern Pines is starting to get attention of builders, developers, people who cannot be on the east side of town as our residential demands increase. And it's from that vantage point we're going to be speaking today with 3 guests that are here with me and one that could not make it. The Reverend Dr. Paul Murphy is here, who is a member of the Southern Pines Town Council. He's the Reverend at the Trinity AME Zion Church. Vincent Gordon, who is the chairman of the Southern Pines Land and Housing Trust, and Fenton Wilkinson, who is the project manager of the Southern Pines Land and Housing Trust. Kim Wade, who is the president of the West Southern Pines Civic Club, could not be here today. She had some concerns with COVID, which is fully understandable, but she was very nice to submit a couple of answers to a couple of questions we wanted to lay out there. And I think the best place to start the program is to sort of understand what West Southern Pines is from a historical perspective. So Kim, on tape, let's hear you talk a little bit about the history of West Southern Pines.
Absolutely. West Southern Pines is in a class by itself, and our rich history deserves to be recognized and celebrated. In 1923, the residents in West Southern Pines chartered one of the first African American townships in North Carolina and one of the first African American townships on the entire East Coast. What I thought was amazing, within the first year of chartering the town, the residents, who at the time were earning about 50 cents a day, were also busy with a fundraising campaign. And on May 23rd, 1924, had raised $6,000 to purchase this land and built the school known as West Southern Pines Colored School. So in 1923, chartered a township, and in 1924, purchased the land to build a school. West Southern Pines at the town extended north out to what we know now as Camp Easter, and southeast what we know as U.S. Highway 1. West Southern Pines also owned McDee's Creek, and at that time supplied water for both West and East Southern Pines. The Southern Pines Town Council decided they needed to control the water supply and decided to initiate an involuntary annexation to the North Carolina General Assembly, petitioning to annex West Southern Pines to Southern Pines because, one, in their opinion, the Negroes needed to be policed by Southern Pines because Negro criminals from other towns and states could find West Southern Pines as a safe place to hide and harbor criminals. In their opinion, number 2, they needed their Negro employees who lived in West Southern Pines healthy and free from tuberculosis because the Negroes were their workforce. And the third reason was because these uneducated Negroes who held office were not intelligent enough to govern themselves, in their opinion. And unfortunately, 8 years later, in 1931, the North Carolina General Assembly granted their annexation, and Southern Pines owned McDee's Creek. Another interesting bit of information is when Southern Pines decided to reroute OUS 1, that is now May Street, they carved out the property through West Southern Pines and installed the new US 1 highway. Those Black residents who lived on that property were relocated to the now North and South McKenna Street and Henley Street. And that's why we have 3 bridges separating the Black and white communities. So for 8 years, we had our own mayor, police officers, tax collector, jailhouse, and every department necessary to operate our town.
I think she could come in and host the next show.
I agree with you on that one.
She is very well spoken. She's highly organized, and unemotional. Those are all great qualities. Vincent, you grew up in West Southern Pines, and you've returned home, so you have a unique perspective. And why do you think today why do you call it a crossroads? What are the issues that are putting West Southern Pines at a crossroads that you're all here to speak about?
Well, we think we are at a crossroads in West Southern Pines, mainly because we're at a point where we've seen development of the community go across years, decades, where some of the residents feel as if there have been neglect as part of the revitalization of a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Little simple things: sidewalks, street lights, just regular maintenance of shrubbery, maintenance of a general area. Those things have kind of gone neglected on West Southern Pines. So we're at a crossroads, mainly because we are bound. We are in a lock with Fort Bragg, North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
with Pinehurst, North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and we are probably the next piece of land
Mm-hmm.
that's available
Mm-hmm.
that could be developed between those landlocked areas. So West Southern Pines is actually a unique and precious part of land that can be the next part of the next development. But we will feel like the community and residents, and we've been told that because that's why we have instituted the Southern Pines Land and Housing Trust,
Right.
is to better get their thoughts, ideals approved and with our institution, in order to try to make the community part of what they want to see it grow as. And that's where we're trying to go.
Paul, you have a unique perspective on the community, not just because you're on the town council, but how do you see the strengths of West Southern Pines and the needs of West Southern Pines? Because the town you have an improvement plan in place for all parts of Southern Pines, correct?
Yes, we do. But I would say, first of all, the perspectives that I've been blessed to have. One, like Vincent, growing up here. In fact, Vincent and I were in school together.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. And in the same band, football teams,
You
and all
mean
kinds.
you weren't his mentor? No, I'm kidding.
No.
He could play an instrument better than that.
But I couldn't run like Vincent.
Yeah.
But we grew up in a wonderful community where almost, and Kim may have mentioned already, you go to get a burger, you would never think, burger joints that are out there now. You go to Leo's,
Uh-huh.
go, even one lady lived right up the street on Glover Street, would make burgers right out of her back door. And it was
Right.
just a real vibrant
Right.
community. Everyone's creating, of course, we did have the doctor's office and all of the other things that Kim have mentioned and has mentioned. But I also come not as a resident growing up in Southern Pines, but also as a pastor of a church where the majority of the members are former teachers.
Mm-hmm.
There at the West Southern Pines High School at the time, and even when it was Southern Pines Elementary School. So it's really wonderful to actually be in a community, or I would say back in a community. Maybe a few years ago, I was serving down in the Laurinburg in the Scotland County area as a pastor, but to actually be here in Southern Pines at this point in time is a tremendous gift. And as you mentioned about the strengths and weaknesses, I think the town council anticipated the opportunities by way of creating what was called the West Southern Pines Economic Development Task Force to look into, what kinds of things can be done to really get West Southern Pines back into that place where the uniqueness is celebrated and where the various contributions can be made. And so in the process of that task force, there was also an opportunity to work with the School of Government out of the UNC Chapel Hill, their School of Government, the DFI, Development Financial Initiative, and they have come in a wonderful way. And the thing I love is communication, creating opportunity to hear from the residents of Southern Pines, not just saying, well, we want economic development in West Southern Pines, because that's a loaded statement. It can actually go in so many different directions where the actual geographical spot can be developed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the residents would benefit from it. But with this conversation through DFI, they're looking at, well, what are the kinds of things that will help engender an organic development of West Southern Pines to be able to thrive again and to be able to make contributions unique to West Southern Pines that would be able to contribute to the whole of the story.
So the town of Southern Pines, they have completed a study for a community-directed revitalization strategy?
Basically, it's not complete. We finished the first stage of it, and we'll be moving into a second stage here shortly. But yes,
So sometimes in Fenton, I'll ask you this question. Sometimes people use the word revitalization, but the antithesis of that is gentrification. And people get the two sometimes confused, and there's some issues on the table of concern to you that pit these two polar opposites at a crossroads.
That's correct. As Paul indicated, when you say revitalization or economic development, the real question is who benefits, and it is actually a national issue of highest priority to look at historic African American communities and what's happening to these communities across the country. And Southeast Raleigh and Old East Durham are two both really hot spots for gentrification. And what gentrification really is that the new businesses that come in and the new housing and development is a fundamentally different than what is historically there. And those that benefit tend to be people who have no connection with West Southern Pines historically. And on one level, people say, well, the whole community is looking better and it's coming up. Well, the problem is with taxes that go higher. A lot of the residents in West Southern Pines are on fixed incomes. They're old, so when their taxes go up, they have to sell and move out. And so the real question is, as Paul, indicated, is, who benefits from the revitalization? And the definition that DFI has come up with is really revitalization taking into account the needs and desires of the current residents and improving their lot and making it so they can stay there in this community that they've been in for generations.
The history of situations that have been overhauled in the past, from what I can see as a layman, most communities aren't successful. The gentrification seems to take hold and development takes over, and sometimes the nature of these areas change. But you're holding out hope that this is not going to be the case in West Southern Pines.
I think we're quite fortunate because we're ahead of we're ahead of the game. We
Right.
recognize the path that it could go down, and
Right.
and so a lot of communities all of a sudden they're in the midst of gentrification before
Right.
they realize what's happening, and then the capitalist free market system comes in and people come in and offer a lot of money, and it's, once it starts, it's sort of like the reverse of I attribute it like the blockbusting in the 60s, where
Yeah.
when blacks were first able to go and move into other neighborhoods, developers would take a black family and put them into a white neighborhood,
Right.
which then would cause the white residents to flee. Well, this is sort of the reverse of that.
Yeah. The culture of Southern Pines is spreading its wings, and it's become a very popular destination spot for permanent residents. And a lot of the people who move here, they love the charm and the history of all of Southern Pines because there's a lot to see. West Southern Pines is part of that equation. And you're implying that there's a keen awareness right now so that you have a head start about this process whereby you can hopefully develop and not change the nature of West Southern Pines, or at least keep the people who want to stay there to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. I mean, there have been those who claim that the effort at the school is to create a black-only facility. And that's not what's happening here. I mean, we're not trying to create a gated community out of West Southern Pines.
Right.
I mean, it'll be open for everybody to come there, but we're trying to develop it in a way that the people who are there
Yeah.
have economic opportunities to increase their income and, continue to enjoy to live there.
So let's do this. Let's bring the school into the conversation in the next set. I think you guys just sort of established a good baseline, but for some people who might be listening, they might not be aware of some of the events that are going on that is causing all this to come to a head these days. The title of the show is West Southern Pines at a Crossroads. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the second set of All Things Moore County. Our topic is West Southern Pines at a Crossroads. We got to hear from Paul Murphy and Vincent Gordon and Fenton Wilkinson in the first set. And we listened to Kim Wade. We're going to listen to Kim again at the beginning of this set because a topic came up. Part of the reason for this conversation it revolves around the Southern Pines Primary School. And Kim, the question would be why do they want to purchase the primary school? To what end? And I think we'll just listen to what she has to say.
Well, in 1931, after the annexation of West Southern Pines to Southern Pines, Black Americans were still victims of segregation. But our brilliant ancestors intuitively created a thriving, self-sustained business economy. Up to the 1970s, we consecutively owned and operated over 200 businesses. Once integration was implemented in 1969, Southern Pines zoned West Southern Pines as residential, and as a result, any business that closed could no longer reopen and no new businesses could be established. This new dynamic forced us out from being business owners and having a means to supplement our incomes to becoming consumers and minimum wage employees and servants. In addition to being redlined by banks and systemic racism as a normal, acceptable way of life, we now have about 8 businesses operating in West Southern Pines in 2021. We also have to contend with a mandate from the former Southern Pines Chief of Police to never have a business in West Southern Pines approved for liquor by the drink. So we are restricted and forbidden to tap into a $10 billion industry, whereas our neighbors across the bridge in downtown Southern Pines have about 25 businesses who profit from that $10 billion industry's cash flow. The sales and tax revenue from these businesses support our local government and economy. So since we are now restricted to neighborhood businesses that will never include a restaurant that offers mixed drinks and enforced by codes to have approved parking, lighting, and other particulars, we see the business model Southern Pines Land and Trust created consistent with the town of Southern Pines Comprehensive Long-Range Plan and the West Southern Pines Neighborhood Development Plan, its future land use and economic development strategies, because it creates a walkable business hub that will develop the economy, eliminating the need to expand parking, have traffic options, site and building standards that are required for any new business. It also clarifies the range of services that are allowed in the West Southern Pines District overlay. This neighborhood development plan has all the components we need for all potential entrepreneurs to do business in our community. It also clarifies the services. It is our desire to establish a walkable green community. We have a plan for our community. We do not want developers and outsiders deciding what should happen on property we own or once owned. We are the original owners of that property. We want to buy and develop it ourselves. It's surprising. We are expected to do business with others in their neighborhood, but we don't have a right to aspire for others to do business with us in ours. Why should others outside our community control our destiny, control our opportunities, and control us? It's the same mindset from 1931, and it's just a different knee on our necks.
Okay, thank you, Kim. As I recall, the school, she answered the question very well. Wasn't the school offered to you with a right of first refusal to purchase it? I guess that's question number one, Vincent.
Yes, it was. We were given the opportunity to purchase originally.
Okay.
We also thought we were going to have the ability to negotiate directly with the school board.
Okay.
That never really materialized to that. We saw a need that we had to do an appraisal eventually, which everyone is kind of aware of.
Right.
The $200,000 appraisal that we actually did. It seems to be more fitting based upon the Aberdeen Primary School's current figure that they have as far as various offers.
Right.
It's about 200,000. Well, we think it might get up to about 250,000, but we are still able and willing to match that offer for the Southern Pines Primary School. So yes, we look forward to what we can do to try to make this whole thing happen. But we did have the right for first. Well, it just didn't quite work out that way. Although we have provided proposal.
Yeah.
We got the backing of the community
Right.
behind us. You know,
Right.
we met with the community, and as Kim mentioned,
Right.
we are doing what the community is asking us to do. And why not have the businesses in West Southern Pines? And going down the future, we're looking at a way that we can actually thrive and give African Americans opportunity, but it prosper and be something that can be used by the entire community. Just that the black ownership in something. It's something that a lot of we have an opportunity here to be a leading community in a small town that can be an example across the United States of how we can actually give a community and empower a community to actually profit and be a living part of the community.
Does it have to be part of, as Kim said, our community as opposed to the Southern Pines community?
When you say our community,
She referenced it as our community, meaning West Southern Pines. But wouldn't the future vision be that it would become
part
just
of the greater community
under the
of course,
same umbrella?
Of course.
Yeah.
What we are really trying to maintain is our cultural heritage.
Yep.
That's the significant piece that we would like to see coexist.
Okay.
But go ahead, Fenton.
The example I use is Chinatown in San Francisco,
Okay.
or Little Italy in New York. I mean, those are culturally
Right.
homogeneous communities,
Right.
and if you look actually throughout the whole South, the culturally homogeneous black communities are disappearing.
Right.
And so this is a black community that wants to retain and celebrate, their cultural history, but with businesses that would be open and appropriate. The Culinary Institute is there. Hopefully, everybody in Moore County would like to come, eat the ethnic food. So yes, it's maintaining the cultural significance, but in a way that benefits all of Moore County.
Okay, but there are a couple of pieces missing. I read the papers like anybody else. Getting back to the valuation that Victor was speaking about, Vincent was speaking about, there was also a school appraisal, Moore County schools, and there was a discrepancy. And so isn't this a case of dueling evaluations? And why such a spread on the valuations? Because the spread was larger than the value of the appraisal you had done.
Right. Simply speaking, the school board's appraisal, the land trust submitted to the school board 4 pages of objections and errors in their appraisal. And
Okay.
just to mention a couple,
Yeah.
there is when the African American community in 1924 bought and cleared the 4 acres that the school was built on. There's a deed restriction that says that the property shall always be used for Negro education, in recognition of the fact that the Negro community bought the property. Their appraisal ignored that. Didn't even started their appraisal with the 1928 deed, and so he was appraising property free and clear.
I see.
And now the reason that the school board's doing what it's doing is they now recognize that they have to deal with this 1924 deed. I mean, that's just one of 4 pages of very egregious, ignorances. Another one was the school board's appraisal said that it would be appraised for its highest and best use would be residential. Well, that ignores the fact that the Southern Pines Comprehensive Plan and this DFI study basically work against that and pretty much discourage that kind of development.
What does the school board say to your argument?
That's the problem. We have submitted pages and pages and pages, and they have never responded to us.
We never got an opportunity to actually sit down and discuss the differences in the appraisals.
Okay.
For example, the school board told us when we pointed out the 1924 deed, their attorney basically said, oh, that's a non-issue. Well, when the NAACP heard that, they pretty much sent a notice of intent to enforce that, and then the CEO of a title insurance company said that they couldn't get title insurance with this encumbrance on there, and so now they recognize that it was, but they wouldn't talk to us about it.
So is it accurate to say that the school is trying to get the highest amount of money for their property because the funds are used to funnel into other parts of the school system, and you're trying to envision a school or a center featuring an auditorium, museum and arts gallery, daycare, home care, a place for people to go to as a centerpiece of a culture that can be rediscovered? I mean,
Yeah, that's correct. And the thing of it is, the museum and the Cultural Arts Center will be benefit to the students of Moore County schools.
No question.
And to date, the school board hasn't acknowledged that they would get a benefit from that, in addition to the cash we're offering.
Yeah, so I wrote an article that talked about fair market value. What is fair market value? They established fair market value with their appraisal, $630,000. We established it at $200,000.
right.
So we never have asked. I've even heard people state or someone state that we just want the school for free or for little to nothing. No, we don't want it for nothing. We actually want it for fair market value, what we think we have established at $200,000. Now, we understand it may be a little bit more than that, and we're prepared to adjust to actually accommodate that. So that's what we're looking for. We're trying to establish what the real fair market value of the school is.
How are you raising the funds?
Yeah, so funds are primarily raised through donations, through private donations of individuals.
Okay.
And we've had some very generous donations, which are just tremendous.
Okay.
The people, because they come from all backgrounds. I would have to mention Reverend Murphy with the Bold Initiative and the conglomeration of churches
Yep.
have provided an enormous support to us also as far as funds. But we've also, Fenton's been able to apply for different funds through grants. We actually, we're running about 4 out of 5 right now. So we're having a pretty good success rate. So the story is great, how we're raising the funds. We have other funds that we can get out there if we actually own the school. The Ador neighborhood also has a Rosenwald school that just was given won an award for $758,000 that is now in the community. We have an opportunity to win that same type of award because we even have a better institution to actually develop than what the Ador folks have. Okay. So funds are there. We just need to, businesses have come on board. So we've had quite a bit of donation.
It sounds like the momentum is also on the upswing.
It is. I think especially after the George Floyd incident occurred, we definitely got a large. I even had some ladies in my neighborhood that actually did an art. I didn't even know they were doing it. They were just doing. They took their art that they drew and they sold the art and gave all the proceeds to the Land and Housing Trust.
It's one of the best.
Just little things.
It's one of the best parts of living in Southern Pines. It's a very giving community.
It is,
and it's very easy to rally people if the cause is right and good. We've got to cut and come back in the third set. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County. West Southern Pines at a Crossroads is going to be a topic people are going to read a lot about this year. Paul, you, even though you sat out the second set, you were listening to the big picture conversations. From where you sit, what you know, with your perspective, what does your perfect world look like? for 2021 with this project? What do you hope to achieve, and how do you hope to get there?
Well, I first of all would like to kind of bounce off of the title, the West Southern Pines at a Crossroads. And while that may be the case in the specifics that have been shared, I see still something wonderful about to happen.
Okay.
There's a wonderful thing when a community is given a voice or allowed to express, when a community psyche is at such a place where the community understands herself as being able to genuinely contribute something wonderful. The efforts of the town council, the current council, have it's created that, by way of what I shared earlier with the DFI journey. They've directly engaged the community in such a way that they've determined that this school would be a great opportunity, and the vision that has already been expressed by both Vincent and Fenton, it would be a great opportunity for the genuine economic development in West Southern Pines, for the residents of West Southern Pines. And in as much as the community's voice begins to participate in this development, we will actually achieve that cultural spot that many will want to come to. That will actually be another draw for Southern Pines as a whole. I've seen some things actually in other neighborhoods where, at least from the artistic perspective, where communities have been transformed totally and completely, where young people can see opportunities of what it is that they're contributing by way of their, well, I'm a little biased, I would say the musical contributions. And based upon what the intent is for the Land Housing Trust division, that it's going to enable the exact same thing in this neighborhood, where, kids of all ages will be able to discover their potentials to become little Mozarts or whatever else, based upon the genres that they're interested in and their contributions. And that's another thing too, that when you really begin to expand the conversation, that when the various, I'll just say the musical genres begin to communicate with one another, and you have the person who may have the R&B background, who appreciates the one who has the country and western background. And you have this incredible dynamic that suddenly explodes, that creates really community in the larger sense of the word. And so Southern Pines is really on the verge of something wonderful, even though it's at the crossroads at the moment.
And provide self-esteem for those kids.
Oh, most definitely.
When you water a plant. We had the privilege, I've had many students who have been on the show in the past who have been recognized for their passions and their abilities in the arts, and to give them a forum, they leave here with their chests out.
Exactly.
And your position is not just from being on the town council and what you're saying about the school today, because you were on the show a few years ago with Anita Emery.
Yes.
And you were doing almost exactly the same thing with the Trinity Church, trying to create a center for youth to go after school.
Exactly.
Because if they had somewhere to go, they wouldn't be getting in trouble.
Right.
And this is a natural extension of that.
Oh, most definitely. In fact, that's happening right now as we speak. There are children there today that are studying. But I'm really, as you said, when a child grows up in a setting where they may have influences from gangs or whatever, or that's the kind of thing, once they realize, wait, I have something great to contribute,
right,
and they have the venue to be able to do that,
right.
Oh, it's on. It's a whole different ballpark. And so I'm really looking forward to what Land and Housing Trust has to offer.
Yep. Vincent, your vision, your hope for 2021, because we're at a crossroads right now, but I think you guys are all in sight of the end goal. What do you hope to see?
Yeah, I'd just like to see. I wish we had the current ability to pretty much just give the school board what they're asking for. I mean, if I can get past that, I'll be happy to do that. But we are at a moment where we have to make a decision, and it's going to have to come down to the amount that we have versus, because we want to see all sides win.
Right.
That's what we want. That's what we want.
I get that.
I want to see the school board do well. I want to see them get as much money since it seems like it's all about money, as much as they possibly can. But at the same time, I look back at my community and the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I see that it has gone to it's at a moment of distress, and here we have an opportunity. I really see a great opportunity where we can actually have something to offer people, and I look at it. I like to see a vibrant community that I used to remember when I was young, where people are walking, admiring, talking. There's a lot of action that's going on in the community. I think what the town needs to understand, and the school board needs to understand, that this project, not just looking at a current high-rise development that could come out of this, but what could we do long term that's going to provide economic development to Southern Pines, period. And that's through tourism. That's getting your community. If you get back people who have some level of higher employment, you're going to be putting back more money into your economy. These are the types of things that we're looking for. If we can bring those teachers back to the affordable housing that we want to attract them, that's the reason I left, is because there was nothing here for me to do.
Right.
Now I made what I had to do and come back to live, but we want to offer those kind of professionals now that opportunity, that they can help develop and keep our community vibrant.
You make me remember when I used to come here to visit in the 80s. All my friends' kids were leaving the minute they got out of high school. There was nothing here for them. All they would do is get in trouble. And this type of a center, a cultural center, gives the kids a place to go to stay out of trouble.
Absolutely.
Because you got to start with them, and that makes the future look bright. Fenton, you're going to get the last word today.
I think the thing that hasn't been spoken today is the fact that we've talked of what seems like some pretty highfalutin goals, but people don't realize what we've already accomplished. We have already assembled a world-class development team. The architect that we have is an internationally recognized architect, Zena Howard. She was one of the principal design build architects for the African American Museum on the Mall in D.C. We've got a fellow who spent his whole 50-year career doing archival and museums and interactive museum displays for African American history and art. So we've worked with Habitat for Humanity on subsidized housing, low-income housing. We have gotten a commitment from the Frank Lloyd Wright School of Architecture, and they have committed to come and design pro bono affordable housing that will be unique in the country. So I mean, so it's not just an unachievable dream, but that's the thing that's so frustrating. The development side is way down the road. I mean, we've already raised $250,000. We've talked to the USDA, and they say, if you can give us a feasibility study, we'll give you a community facilities grant. I mean, that's $1 million and a half grant right there. So the whole, once we acquire the school, from that point on, I mean, we're way down the road.
The grant money comes after the acquisition.
Virtually all grant money
Yeah.
comes after you own the property. Very little. We have been fortunate to get several grants that have contributed to the acquisition, but 95% of the grants are once you own the property, then we'll be happy to give you money to make your dream come true.
I loved his analogy earlier on about Chinatown in New York, Little Italy, or San Francisco. And I'll tell you, I started the show by saying I've lived here for 21 years. I love Southern Pines more today than I did 21 years ago, even though it's changed. But look at all the changes in the last 20 years. It's still a huge draw, and it's probably at its most attractive peak since I've ever been here, since 1979. The development of West Southern Pines will add another layer of culture and interest and intrigue, and it's like Southern Pines is a beautiful mosaic, and the future does look bright. I mean, as long as we have passionate people working towards the same goal, and you guys definitely are. You filled that bill. Please, Vincent.
I got one more thing I just need to add right just before we end, but we have. If anyone's interested in providing any type of donation or pledge, we still have the pledge window open for the trust. It's at Southern Pines Land and Housing Trust.org. It's splandhousingtrust.org.
Spell out A-N-D.
A-N-D. Yes. And we will. There's a button there for donate, and right now we're really accepting pledges. You can donate, but pledges are also acceptable.
So it's Southern Pines, SP, Land and
Housing Trust. Yes.
And housingtrust.org?
Yes.
Okay, we'll post
and
this
we
on the
and we are
podcast.
updating our website pretty regularly. It's a good place, a good resource to go look and see what's going on with the organization.
Okay. I want to thank Kim Wade for participating in the show, Reverend Dr. Paul Murphy, Vincent Gordon, thank you, and Fenton Wilkinson. Thank you. Thanks all for coming in. Look to see what happens down the road. It's going to be an exciting year.
Thank you for this
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thanks, guys. This is All Things Moore County. We'll speak to you next week.